Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the final day on SBL webinar. I would like to continue with where we stopped yesterday. We are looking at September 18 exam paper. Along with I'm teaching you how to tackle the paper and the exam techniques. Most of which I have covered yesterday, and there's a bit more which I will take you through as we go on today. Also today, let me know if there are any technical areas that you would like a brief explanation again. Probably I would do it at the end of the last part of the session. Any key theoretical areas that you want me to explain again, and any other queries, questions, doubts that you have, you can ask me. All right, so yesterday we looked at question 1, and then we looked at A and B. So today let's move on to question number 2. All right, what it says is CC has been awarded the contract to build the road in B. It is now Jan 2012 and planning for the project has started. You are JI, the project manager for the construction of the road in B. So when you read a role like this, the moment you read the role project manager, so wear that hat of project manager. So now you must think like a project manager, act like a project manager, do what needs, and behave like a project manager. Only then you would be able to answer the question accordingly. So if you're a finance manager, then you must wear that hat. Normally you will be given only one role, but in this particular examination the roles keep on changing. All right, you have been just appointed project manager as the original project manager left CC suddenly 1 month ago. So you are new to the job. Oliver, the junior member of the project team, began to draft the project initiation document during the time when no one was acting as project manager. He has prepared for your review the outline contents of the project initiation document and a summary of the section in it on the operational issues affecting the project. Right, what is a project initiation document? So this is directly from your technical content. So you must know what it is for you to answer this question. So if you don't know what a PID is, then it will be a bit difficult for you to answer. So what is a project initiation document? The technical areas that you want me to explain in brief again, ask me in the last half an hour of the session, not now. We'll keep it at the end. For now, let me take you through the exam papers. Also remember, in SBL you will have generic questions plus questions based on technical areas. So if you look at question number 2, it is based on project management area, technical area. So PID, what is a project initiation document? Right, so a PID is a formal detailed document which contains planning information extracted from other sources such as your business case, which is your business proposal, the dissemination plan, risk assessment, and also your Gantt chart, that is timeline. And it will include all information necessary for you to implement the project or execute. So that's what a project initiation document, a document that will help you to initiate the project. And if you look at a business case document or a business proposal, it is more of a high level document. That is, it will help you to gain investor confidence, request for funds, and talk about the project in length from many different fronts. Whereas a PID is more of operational than a business case document or a business proposal. So business case document is about a document that is there to gain project approval, whereas PID is aimed at ensuring that an approved project is successfully completed. Have any of you here worked on or are working on preparing business proposals? It is always better to have a look at one so that you have real life experience. See, when you know something from a theoretical as well as a practical angle, the confidence level in that particular subject increases. Then you know what to write and what not to write. That's the whole idea behind putting, basically, walking the talk, putting it to practice what we learn. So anyone who has seen a project proposal or involved in preparing one? Let me quickly show you one. This is something that, see, it will normally have a front page. For example, you can see this is, for a hotel like project, its name, where the name goes as the dunes, where the, project is planning to build 40 chalets and 5 villa, and it's an ecotourism project. So, and you will have the company name. And the next thing that you have is table of contents. Now, this is very much a business case document, or we call it a business proposal. You will have an executive summary, the whole project summarized in 1 or 2 pages. Anyone to get a quick idea of what's going on. Profile of the developer, who is investing, what his background is. If it's a company, you bring in company details. If it's an individual, you bring in the individual's details. Architect's profile, who are the designers and builders, etc. And national importance, what is the relevance or the importance of this project to the country, industry overview, market analysis, where are you going to carry out the project, cost and financials. So cost and financials, in the main report we will have numbers with summary details, whereas at the end you will have annexures. So you have P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, NPV, ARR, payback. You can include as much detail as you want. Then you see site layout, design, recreational activities, marketing strategy, construction and project schedule, labor requirement. That is your whole HR, organizational structure, labor requirement, salaries, wages. The entire thing should be covered here. Infrastructure, and then also benefits to the local community. So what you include in a business case will depend on your requirements to convince investors and to get the buy-in. So and some reports you will see 5 forces analysis or SWOT analysis or risk assessment. You can include as you want. So this is just a sample that I wanted to show you. And then the detail will keep on going. Right, so that's what a business case document is. And a PID is more operational, and it will have certain data picked up from your business proposal, and that will be used to implement the project. All right, so required, prepare a memo addressed to O, which critically evaluates the outline contents and summary of operational issues in the PID, which he has prepared and recommends improvements. Professional marks are available for demonstrating skepticism skills, probing mindset. Right, few things to underline. Prepare a memo. So memo is the first thing you must underline. Right, and you are addressing it to Oliver, who's the junior member of the project team. So now you're the project manager, addressing or writing a memo to the junior member of the project team. So underline memo and then underline which critically evaluates the outline contents and the summary of operational issues in the PID, which he has prepared and also recommend improvement. So underline recommend. So you need to do 2 things here. One, critically evaluate the content in the PID and recommend. Right, first thing first. What is the format of a memo? See, in the effective communication document, which I have uploaded here under handouts, page number 3. You see letters, emails, and memos. Look at this area. Importantly, letters, memos, and emails must be set at the correct tone. So here you are the project manager addressing it to the junior member. In the examination, you will be taking on the role or roles of senior management positions, reporting to board level or outside stakeholders, or even your internal members. Therefore, the tone and clarity is very important. See, here the point to note is you are the manager talking to a junior level staff. Therefore, should you explain more or can you talk in high level tone? Should you be more clear or can you just mention things on a high level note? How do you write? Boss is writing to the junior. how would you address? More than writing the answer, it's important that you understand how to write the answer. Let me repeat that again. More than writing the answer, you must understand how and how to write the answer. Then what to write becomes easy. Manager is talking to a junior member of the staff. So should he explain more or less? Yes, so someone says talk more clearly and give explanations if necessary. Yes, you need to make your point clear. So as a manager, when you explain something to your subordinates, you need to be more clear. So because they're at a junior level and they should understand the bigger picture, and so that you talk to them in a language that they understand and explain more. Right, so since it's a memo, okay, the letters, memos, and emails at this level are unlikely to be informal. So do not use text speak, shorten words or phrases. Shorten words or phrases don't use anywhere, not only in this particular format, anywhere. Of course, you can use NPVIRR, things like that, but not, the way you text. When you text your friend, you cannot do that in an exam. However, these should be kept concise, to the point, and well structured, as would be expected in a professional context, right? So within an office environment, we are always professional. So a letter, memo, and or an email will look like this: to, from, date, subject, and then finally you sign out. On a letter and email, you can say dear, but for a memo, you don't have to. Since you put from, to, you can avoid that. Of course, you must have an introductory paragraph. Remember that. For a memo also, you must have a 2 to 3 line introductory paragraph. That's important. These formats are very important, and professional or the skills marks will relate to this as well. Understand it like this: when your boss wants you to prepare a report, you can't provide the content in a memo format or a letter format. It should be in a report format. Similarly, if he asks you to prepare presentation slides, you can't give him a report. You have to give him presentation slides. So that's exactly what's happening here in the examination. Stick to the format in which the question is being asked. Do we need to mention the term sincerely while writing to senior personnel? Not in a memo. All right. So second thing, what do you mean by critically evaluate? So evaluate meaning we know positives and negatives. But what do you mean by critical evaluate? That's the verb in this particular question. So what do you mean by critical evaluate? So first thing, we must stick to the format, which is a memo. Now we must stick to the verb, which is critically evaluate. What do you mean by critically evaluating? Anyone wants to answer? Looking at positives and negatives is evaluation, or benefits and otherwise. But what is critical evaluation? Critical analysis. Cost versus benefit. No. Considering the most important factors to evaluate. No. It means you look at negatives. No. Only negative aspects should be highlighted. No. Right. One important thing that I would like to tell you now is, when you don't know a generic term or a verb, you can always Google and find out what it is. And you can, on Google, you just type meaning of examination verbs. Meaning of examination verbs. Then you will get the meanings of all these terms like evaluate, analyze, recommend, define, differentiate. There are different levels of verbs. So you can get those. You don't have to be confused anymore. Google is your savior, right? So just do a quick find out. So critical evaluation means now you as a project manager, you are evaluating your junior members' work. So critical means to be providing a subjective opinion. And then you look at what is there and what is not there, and what he should include further. So analysis is about 360 view, right? Analysis is about, breaking down into many parts so that you understand the subject better. So critical analysis is basically, a person's opinion. So when you're a project manager, you are expected to know a lot of things, and you are in the capacity of advising your junior now. So that is where this critical analysis becomes more important. So I hope all of you figured out now what it is all about. So memo is the first thing, then critical evaluation of the outline contents and summary of operational issues in the PID, which he has prepared, and recommend improvements. And then we must show skepticism in our professional skill. And we have 14 marks and 4 marks of skill. So like, which exhibit is this related to? That's the first thing you need to identify. I'm sure it's not that difficult here. Which exhibit are we looking at to answer this question? Right, exhibit 4. It's clearly given, and it says outline contents of the PID. Outline contents of the PID and a summary of operational issues section of the PID. So we have outline contents, aims and background, operational issues, personnel and responsibilities, and summary of operational issues section. So their stages and the timelines are given along with cost breakdowns. And this is something like your Gantt chart, time schedule. For example, stage 1 is from May to April of 2012. Stage 2 starts somewhere Feb, and so on. Basically, this area is depicted here. And then the main risks and the risk management activities are given. So outline is this. Outline content is this, like I showed you in that business case document. See, in a business case document, you have a lot of outline content, content page. We call it table of contents. So in a PID, you will have different set of outline content. "14 marks, how many points should we write?" How many points should we write to get the 14 marks? Seven points with developments, one says, but if you see the content here, you can tackle more than 7 points. So definitely examiner is expecting more from you. Yes, you must write 14 points because there's so much of information that is given. All right, let's start. So format 2. You will put the name of the junior member Oliver, from you, that is Joe, and subject, you can say evaluation on project initiation document, and date your exam date, and you write up 2 to 3 line introductory paragraph. So in the introductory paragraph, what you would say is, you would thank him for preparing this PID on the absence of a project manager, and also you will say that that you would like to raise or highlight certain issues, as he does not have much experience in this particular area. That would be sufficient in your introductory paragraph. Right, if we have to have a plan in terms of what and what we will write, can you quickly tell me in single words what are the factors you will consider here? Basically, we need 14 words. Does the format of the report carry marks? Of course, format carries marks. And any question that says section of a report, section of whatever, then you don't have to follow the whole format, but you can have a heading, section. So even in the exam, you must take about a minute or two and quickly have a plan. Okay, these are the points that I'm going to write about, or the factors that I'm going to write about. So when it comes to the critical evaluation of this PID and the recommendation on operational issues, what are the factors that I will look at? Right, so if you look at the outline, he has started with introduction, background, business case, project benefits, costs, and progress payments, and also financial budget and funding, operational issues, time and cost constraints, limitations, and risks, and then HR factors, personnel and responsibilities. So there is a nice flow to the document, so that you can mention as the first point, a general comment. Right, then you can talk about the missing elements and then the improvements. So first thing that you must say is include a purpose. That is, why do you need to do it? Now don't go to write about why you need to build a road, etc. Right? I mean, for your company, purpose would be to taking up a big project and increase bottom line. Of course, you can say one line about what the project is about. That is to say, build a road which would, reduce travel time. But don't go to elaborate that. purpose for you, for the company. So we spoke about a proper outline. So there you get 1 point, and then we said the purpose of the project. Then you also must include objectives. See, purpose and objectives are two things. Purpose of the project is to build a road. Objectives for your company, which can be financial objectives as well as non-financial objectives. So financial objectives, like I told you, it can be increase in the bottom line, company's bottom line. So increase in margin, more than 8%, keeping costs within budget. So talking about financial elements, you can get 1 point. And you can focus on non-financials after that, which is creating or building up a good rapport with the other country's government by doing this project, so that you can win more projects, more business. So within the objectives factor, we can get 2 marks, one for financial, one for non-financial. Right, there's a question, wouldn't the introduction discuss the purpose? No, here the project manager is writing a memo to the junior. And in his introduction, he is going to say not about the project, about what his junior has done. So what he will say is, he will say, like I said before, he will thank the junior for doing a PID in the absence of a project manager. And then he will go on to say that there are certain issues that I would like to raise and give you recommendation as to how to move forward. So there he is not talking about the project. He's going to talk about the PID document. Hope that clarifies. It's important that you be very clear as to what to write under which heading. Right, moving on, another factor would be stakeholders. So here that's missing. So you would say it is important to list down the key stakeholders and indicating their level of power and interest. Because projects of this nature will normally attract a lot of public eye as well. So you need to say, how do you handle? Don't go to talk about Mendelow's matrix. That is not the requirement. But mention that stakeholders should be, different types of stakeholders should be looked at in terms of their level of power and interest. Don't go out by bringing in Mendelow's matrix here. Another factor that you need to bring in is assumptions. See, in the project proposal or the business case that I showed you before, there's P&L, balance sheet, cash flow. See, in that proposal, along with the attachments, there is also something called as key assumptions made. You can't just give figures. You must say how you arrived at those. But since it was a hotel project, it will have occupancy ratio, room rates, how the capital is funded, tax information. The detail should go on as much as you need. You must have supportings. So that's another point that you must bring in here. Assumptions in terms of project costs and timings. So under that, you can actually develop assumption about labor, finance, and under finance, you can talk about working capital, how the funding is going to happen. So there's a lot of room for you to, develop. So assumption is another key factor that you can work on. Then another factor that you can critically evaluate is the project constraints. Constraints are limitations. Now, this says time and cost constraints. So he has covered two elements. Are there any other constraints that he needs to talk about here? Any other constraints that he should mention? Good. Scope is one, resources is one. And under resources, you can talk about human resource, expertise you can talk about, because this particular company has not worked in such a project before, or employees with expertise. And if you are to bring in expertise or employees with expert knowledge, do you have it in your country or should you bring it from another country? If so, the cost implications. Don't go too far, keep it concise. Also, your ability to stretch your existing staff. Your existing staff is also a resource. To what extent can you bring them to this particular project? They will already have, they will already have other projects that's going on. So how will they be stretched? That is also a constraint. Then another factor that you can talk about is project HR, the team that will be involved in the project. So he has spoken about project sponsor and manager. So what about the project board, which will oversee, and also maybe a project risk committee, because this is a unique project for them. So that particular team will evaluate what kind of risks that the company, the project will face. Therefore, what are the mitigation strategies or elimination strategies in place, so on. Another factor you can talk about is communication. That is, you are dealing with a government, therefore, you must have a PR department to communicate with your internal and external stakeholders. Internally, you constantly update your project team in terms of completion dates, the progress, who should do what, and so on. Externally, depending on what the government wants to know, because they will be a key player in this project. So you must constantly update them. And updation is important for, collection of payments as well, especially when it is on in stages. And also you must constantly update your shareholders, because this is not a project that ends in 1 year. It will keep on continuing. If you remember your studies on contract costing, you will know that the whole income is not realized in 1 year, it is staged. So constant update to shareholders is important, so that share price is not affected. And as I told you, it's a listed company, so share price market movements are important as well. Also, you must bring in project monitoring and quality. That is, it's something like a review section, variance analysis. When do you review? What do you review? Who reviews it? What are the accepted KPIs between the company and the government, and are they satisfied with those, and so on. Also, further factors to bring in is deadline details or different phases of the project, which can be also part of your timeline, and it should be with separate headings. Also, you must bring in the limitations that you may face. You're going to work on mountain terrain, so rainy seasons, how will that affect your work? If so, what kind of plans you have put in place? Also, in this stages of construction, you have to bring in more detail. like I said, in terms of limitation and anything that you can't avoid, unavoidable situations, the kind of support approval needed from the government to carry on with the project. You will need approvals from local authorities and things like that. So those kind of details, what you expect from the government during a particular period of time. Right, and in terms of risks and risk management, you must also bring in the likelihood and impact element, right? So you can mention the risk and then also bring in likelihood and impact, and then the management strategies or activities that you are planning. So that's another critical evaluation you will make. You must also say bring in more points under environment, because this whole project is connected to the environment. And you can also bring in risks related to certain pressure groups. There will be pressure groups who are invested on who are interested on forest conservation, animal welfare, and so on. So you have to bring in those aspects as well. Anything else that you would like to bring in to your evaluation, critical evaluation? Any other observations? All right, do we have to balance the points between the contents of the PID and the operational issues section? No, you don't have to. Right, good. That's a very good point. Sustainability plans. Yes, especially with regards to this project, it is a very good point, because after doing a lot of damage to the environment, how are you going to make sure that the environment, the elements in the environment, the animal to the trees, to they are not affected. So sustainability is a very good point. Yes, what about dissemination plans? Yes, another good point. Yeah, so that would suffice. The most important thing is I want you to understand what to write and how to write. I mean, in case study questions, it's very important that you understand the question. Any, slip here and there, if you understand the question wrong, you will end up writing, all the wrong things. Right, let's move to the third one. It is now July 2012, 3 months after CC began construction of the new road. You are Pat, a consultant employed by CC's board. So now you are taking a new role. You are a consultant. You have just left the emergency meeting regarding the incident at the construction site and are responding to the requests made by chairman at the end of the meeting. Right, so where does this, or rather which exhibit does this relate to? So this relates to exhibit 5. So you will come and put that number here that you should have done when you are reading the requirements and the exhibits. Like I told you before, do it for all the requirements. When you know that a particular exhibit relates to a particular requirement, make a note of that. All right, prepare a confidential memo for I, Chairman of CC, which discusses the ethical and reputational concerns raised at the meeting. Right now, what is this confidential memo is? What is the format for a confidential memo? We saw a memo. Now, what is a confidential memo? In the exam, you will always have surprises like this, small words that you haven't heard before. We looked at the format of a memo. So what is a confidential memo? How do we write that? Format is similar to the memo format, just that on top you would say confidential memo. Right, so don't say confidential memo in the subject area. In the subject area you must say reply to chairman's ethical concerns or ethical and reputational concerns. That should be your subject, but on top of the memo you can say confidential memo. That would suffice. Right, I hope you have already read the exhibit. How many points can we write here? 10 marks. 10 plus 2. But 2, you anyway get it, provided you stick to the professional skill. So for 10 marks, how many points do we write? Yes, we need to write 10 points because there is sufficient content as well. And as before, the introductory paragraph, you would say that you are discussing the ethical and reputational concerns that the chairman has raised within the discussion, right? Factors that are within the discussion. Right. So first ethical concern would be how the company should respond to the whole situation. That is, again, PR. It's about making a statement. Now, the lawyers told you not to, say anything. And the tendency is that you will go and blame the protesters. And in case if there is a legal action and if the other party wins, then it is very bad for reputation as well. So company should stay away from making false statements. Another point would be about leadership. The CEO should ensure that the ethical side of this project is taken care of, especially when the annual report stresses the importance of his approach to ethics, right? And they say they will be honest and so on. So you must not act otherwise. Then the trust or the confidence of stakeholders will reduce. Right. Then another point would be attitude towards health and safety. Especially Burton's comments, he is not that worried about security and safety of people who work on the site. And he has also not issued or highlighted the safety issues in the report that is given to the board. And the ultimate responsibility rests with him. So that is a major concern to worry about. Another concern would be Burton's move towards clearing up of the site. So, something happened, and if someone wants to investigate, then the area should be intact. So if you are trying to clean it up quickly, then honesty is a question, because the authorities, when they come to check, they will not have any evidence to collect. And you can also be accused of trying to tamper with the evidences. Right. Also, another factor to be concerned about is meeting with the staff. So one thing, why are you trying to meet staff and give communication? Is it to mislead them? Right. I mean, give false information. Also, they talk about a hardship bonus. So is it something to bribe them to say something else when the authorities come and question, if and when the authorities come and question them? And if, for example, staff end up providing evidence which is contrary um, to what Burton wants to provide, then that's another issue. Another factor is transparency. Burton kept certain information away from the board, especially with regards to health and safety. But as the chief executive, he should have been more transparent so that all stakeholders are protected. I mean, when something is tough, by avoiding it or by hiding it, you can't solve it. It's about bringing in solutions. Any other factors that you can bring in terms of ethical concern? Any other ethical factors that you can bring? Um, no one of senior employees discussed with protesters. Yes. Now that should happen with the lawyer's advice, because if they say anything contrary or that will damage the reputation, then it's a problem. Especially large corporations, they are very careful in terms of what they tell the public. So that is why they have a separate department called the PR department. Right. Another suggestion: ensure activities are eco-friendly. Eco-friendly plus people-friendly, more towards safety. to what extent companies focused on being ethically responsible towards the key stakeholders who are part of the project, directly and indirectly. All right, reputational concerns would be the results of the accidents, meaning how will this information go out now? Right now, they have gotten the media attention because of the protests. And there will be very bad publicity. If health and safety, failings are found, and if it becomes public. And adding to the problem is that if CC is misleading the authorities, and if that information comes out, and all this can lead to government cancelling the contract, and that's a huge impact. See, these are real life things in the sense, you can, you don't need a lot of technical knowledge to think of these answers. Another reputational concern is that your attitude or your behavior towards the key stakeholders. Now, up to now, CC has kept away from, contacting the external stakeholders. Right now, Burton in his annual report says, they are concerned about stakeholders and, the impact on environment, etc. But here, nobody's talking to the outside world. Right? So, especially the protesters. And see, if they keep quiet, the external stakeholders will think they have done a mistake, CC has done a mistake, and therefore they are keeping quiet. So they need to do something about it. That is, maybe do a press release or get someone to talk to the protesters. But then again, that has to be done with the lawyers, advice, what to say and what not to say. You can't just go on public forum and make whatever statement you want. Also, another reputational concern would be, okay, now this happened in with a foreign project. How will this affect in your local country? Right, the overall brand. That also you must consider. Right, there's a question, is it possible another reputational matter to be evaluated is the management of its managers, as well as making them understand the importance of representing the company? Management of its managers as well as making them understand, yeah. You can bring that under the overall attitude towards ethics. So there again, the CEO is responsible. So CEO is part of the management, and so he has the responsibility to tell the managers to act ethically at all times. But what he is doing in this instance is quite questionable, which is not in line with good ethical practices. Right? Any other concerns? Any questions you have? Okay, so this is a good point. That Lee is absent for 6 weeks. And okay, so if a key employee in your organization is absent, you must always have a quick replacement so that whatever the work that is has to go on will continue. Yes, you can bring that point as well. So it's about management of staff. Yeah, that's fine. All right, a frequent question in any examination, that is it possible to find out the most possible areas which will be tested? No, don't work on this question spotting. That is not healthy. Any other factors that you would like to bring in? So answering questions like this, you must have a little bit of experience as well. So that is where reading on companies' ethical practices, in real life is important, so that you can get around the practical aspects. So business acumen plays a big part. When we learn ethics from a technical angle, I mean, it is easy. You can say that you have to be ethical from all aspects, environment and human and so on. But it should be applied to a particular scenario, particular event, a particular activity. Then you understand where and where it affects. So that only then you can develop the ability to understand the impact on different stakeholder, the impact that has on different stakeholders and environment and etc. Reporting of previous protest is not reported to CC by security company. Yes, that is also something that you can bring up. So that talks about the communication lines. So did someone block it because it's something bad that is happening to the company? So then again, it is not an ethical business practice. Senior management should get all information, positives as well as negatives. If someone is blocking it in between, then you need to be concerned about that. Any other concerns? All right, moving on to 3B. Prepare a summary for CC's board to review assessing the control weaknesses discussed at the emergency meeting. Stating for each control weakness, its consequence and recommendation. Right, a summary for CC's board to review assessing the control weaknesses discussed at the emergency meeting, and stating for each control weakness, its consequence and recommendation for improvements. So here there's no format to follow. You can just write the answer. Of course, you can have a heading that says, summary of control weaknesses, its consequences and recommendations. And below that, you can have, subheadings. For example, you can have a heading of oil, and under that you can say what the weakness is, and because of that weakness, what the consequences, and then the recommendation. Right, for example, you can say oil, and then you say weakness, and then you write what the weakness is all about, and then you will say a consequence, and then you will do the recommendation. And then you can talk about lighting. That is also a concern. Again, weakness, consequence, recommendation. So this is what a professional presentation is, professionalism in your answer script. So you can go on with that particular style. There's no other particular format that you have to follow. All right, before getting into the weakness, consequence, and recommendation, can you quickly tell me the factors? What are the control weaknesses? See, there are 14 marks to capture. So for example, if we take oil, weakness, consequence, and recommendation, you can get 3 marks. So you write about 5 factors into 315. So your 14 marks is covered. Give me 5 control weaknesses. Now this control weaknesses, you must take it out of the exhibit. Right, so control weaknesses would be one is oil, because they fail to clear it up, and it also highlights the weakness of site management. Then lighting, insufficient lighting. Also internal audit visits, it's not sufficient. So that's another control weakness. Another problem is that previous break-in was not reported. So we can say communication, right, with the security firm. Also, not enough security staff present on the site. So we can say inadequate security presence. Also, no replacement of health and safety manager. And again, there's no one to go and report to. So even 5 factors with weakness, consequence, recommendation, explain would do. Okay, so we have covered 6. So let's take a break now, and then be back in 15 minutes, and then I will explain how to go about explaining this. Hi everyone, welcome back. So let's look at how to go about question 3B. Let's quickly look at the question again. A summary for CC's board to review, assessing the control weaknesses discussed at the emergency meeting, stating for each control weakness its consequences and recommendation for improvements. So you must say what the consequence is and then the recommendation for improvements. All right, we have already identified the control weaknesses. So first one is oil. Right, so oil, the weakness you would state that failure to clear up the oil, right, and that is a failure on internal procedures, plus inadequate inspection by site management. So if proper cleanup procedure is there, then it would have been cleaned up on time. And there is the other problem is there is no inspection. So someone should monitor and inspect. So those are the two weaknesses. One is internal procedure, and the other one is inadequate inspection, which you will bring it under weakness. So what is the consequence? What do you mean by consequence? So what is a consequence in this case? Right, good. It's negative outcome. Yes, a result. Right, a result that is not pleasant. So here the consequence would be, increased risk of accidents. Also, when you don't follow proper safety measures, there can be risk of legal penalties. So those are two consequences of failure to clear up the oil. So we wrote the weakness and now we wrote the consequence. So then we must write the recommendation. So the recommendation would be there should be clear instructions to staff about health and safety in all sites. And also recommendation on regular inspections, which should be recorded so that anyone who wants to see whether it was done can go through it. Who monitored or who inspected? Were there any shortfall? How was it remedied? Were any accidents reported? And so on. So that would be your recommendation. Then we have lighting. Again, health and safety measures are inadequate. So that's the weakness. And the consequence is that staff or personnel on the site, they can't see hazards clearly, dangers clearly, and also legal penalties for failing to take action. So that's the consequence. Recommendation would be giving deadlines to staff who are responsible to fix the problem, and also follow up procedures. Someone should go and actually check whether whatever recommendation that was given is being followed up, whether sufficient lighting is being provided, and so on. And then internal audit visit. The weakness is that monitoring is inadequate. See, it's important that internal audit, team goes and visits to identify the risks so that they can assess and bring up mitigating strategies. And the consequence is that issues at the site will not be identified. And if you keep the staff informed about their visit, then staff will take necessary action to take action in terms of compliance of whatever that needs to be done. So you would, in terms of recommendation, you would recommend that the internal audit visit the sites, and maybe frequent visits to areas where there's more or high health and safety risk exists. Also, the visits can be scheduled, plus you can have surprise visits to see actually whether staff are complying with your recommendations. There's a question, would it be fine if our points had similar weaknesses, consequences, and recommendation? See, for factors like oil and lighting, you can have similar consequence. Yeah, it depends on the scenario, If it matches, I mean, the consequence and recommendation, if it matches similar weaknesses, it's all right. Right, then the fourth one, communication. So the weakness was the previous break-in was not reported to CC. So the weakness is that communication channels are not being used effectively. That's the weakness. And therefore the consequence was that company was not alerted, right, to take steps uh, such as that strong fencing was needed, and you need more staff on the site to prevent break-ins. So that's the consequence. So the recommendation would be to strengthen the reporting. So you must instruct the security firm that any attempt at any attempt by people towards a break-in must be reported immediately to a particular authority, a designated person, mainly the risk manager. Then inadequate security presence. That shows the weakness of not detailed enough specifications. First thing you must do is when you drop the contract with the security firm, your specs should be very strong as to what the company expects from them. So because of that, the consequence is that the staff were unable to deal quickly and effectively with disturbances. So two things, number of staff plus availability. So the recommendation would be to amend the contract term so that there is adequate or sufficient number of staff on duty at all times on all key points, meaning key locations. And then no replacement of HNS manager. So if a manager is not present, then supervision will also be not there. So that's the weakness. So if Lee is absent, then oversight of health and safety will be lost. Also, if manager is not there, the subordinates will not have a person to report to. So staff and subcontractors will not have anyone to communicate their concerns to. So that's the weakness. The consequence is that health and safety problems will not be addressed and will go unnoticed. And there can be demotivation from staff side as well, because they don't have someone to report their problem to. And recommendation would be immediately appoint a replacement until Lee returns. So that's a generic recommendation whenever there's a manager on leave or absence. So you must have a replacement in place. All right, any questions on that? Any concerns? Recommendation could be that any person planning to quit has to provide an update or notice much prior. See, the point here is that Lee has already gone. So the assumption is that, okay, they gave notice and went. So what did the company do about it? So manager is gone, then you should have planned for replacement. That is a normal practice in any company, isn't it? In the absence of an accountant, assistant accountant should take place to sort out issues and move forward with the accounting function. So providing notice is not a recommendation. Replacement is the recommendation. Right, moving to the next part. Prepare a briefing paper. So that's the word you will underline first. A briefing paper for CC's next board meeting. So that's a high level meeting. Advising the board of the advantages for CC of establishing a separate risk committee. At the moment, they don't have a separate risk committee. What they have is an audit committee. So few things, briefing paper and advice. Right, so how does a briefing paper look? See, as the name indicate, briefing notes, papers or working notes are intended to be short and to the point, especially when you write to the board, but have no real formal structure as they are intended as advisory documents for other people such as senior managers or board directors to help them communicate more formally, both verbally or in writing to a selected audience. Therefore, there is no recognized formal structure. The students must understand that these differ from reports in that they don't require opinions, conclusions, recommendations. Instead, they should be merely informative and factual in order for the recipient to form an objective opinion of the facts presented. So what do? Just say, put a heading stating that it's a briefing paper and put a heading. That will go as advantages of establishing a separate risk committee. So in your answer, you would say briefing paper, and then you would say advantages of establishing a separate risk committee. Thoroughly go through this document, that is effective communication, because it is very important that you follow these formats. Because SBL exam is all about doing what your boss says, and your boss at different instances will tell you different things and will want the answer in different formats. So it's very important that you follow those instructions. All right, I'll give you 2-3 minutes to suggest. Yeah, before we go there, tell me what do you mean by advice? The verb advise. So you are a consultant and you are preparing a briefing paper advising the board. So advise is the verb that is being used here. So what do you mean by advice? Normally when someone come to you for an advice, what do we do? Your friend can ask for an advice. Your boss is asking for an advice. What does that mean? So advice is all about, suggesting a best course of action. So someone is asking you whether A is good or B is good. So depending on his needs, context, you would say that B is good based on its merits for his suitability. That is what advice is all about. Basically, a best course of action. See, unlisted company, a small company, can have one committee that will be looking at both. But here, this is a large company, listed company. Then your advice should be different. Right. So, what are the advantages of a separate risk committee? I'll give you 2-3 minutes to come out with about 5 points. All right, advantages of separate risk committee. When you have a separate risk committee, meaning a dedicated risk committee, they will fully get involved in assessing and identifying the risks that the business would face. See, when the existing audit committee has to look into two aspects, they will not have much time, right? So, first thing is dedicated work, right? And they also can focus on, how to promote risk awareness throughout the company. Risk management also can be part of culture. In the sense, you can train your employees to manage risk. So someone or some team has to actively do it. It can be embedded in your culture. So a separate team means there is proper leadership, right? So that can be your first point. Leadership for risk management. Another point is that see, audit committee will have the expertise on financial accounting and audit concerns, and they might or may not have expertise on identification of risk and risk management. So when you have a separate audit committee, there will be expertise on identification, assessment, and management. Of risk. Right. And currently, audit committee communicates only quarterly. And we already saw the problems of, not communicating the risks. So when you have a risk committee, it becomes more frequent. And as and when there's an issue, it will be followed up and solution will be provided on the spot. Right. So effective communication. By the risk committee. You will also have a dedicated person, dedicated, team or authority where employees can, report risk related issues too. And if you see the current audit committee, it is full of independent non-executive directors. When it comes to a business, people who are involved on a day-to-day basis will know the kind of risk that the business is facing. So don't you think it's better that we have some executive directors also in the risk committee? So you can form a separate risk committee with executive directors. And then the non-executive directors who are part of the audit committee can take a oversight approach. Right, so we can say to derive sector or operational specific knowledge operations specific knowledge. Another point would be assurance to shareholders. Assurance to shareholders that a separate risk committee looks at the risk management of the company, because then they become more serious of this particular task. Especially when CC has health and safety concerns. And it is also part of your governance best practice. Another point would be a proactive approach towards risk management. I mean, this team would have sufficient time, expertise, knowledge, and then they can take a proactive approach, meaning prevent something before it happens, rather than taking a reactive approach. And of course, overall benefits of risk management. It will help to save on reputation, time, cost, and therefore quality of the whole business deliveries can be enhanced. risk exists in every layer of the business. So when you have a dedicated committee, they'll have the time and expertise to look into each of these aspects. So then it's good for the entire business, not just one function or one part of the business. All right, moving on to the fourth requirement. So here it's a different format now. It is now October and 6 months after CC began construction of the new road in B. So you are still the consultant. The CEO has asked you to help him to prepare for the next board meeting, which will discuss investment in big data analytics and offering long-term infrastructure management for roads in O. So now we are touching on a technical area again. So that is big data analytics. Required, prepare 2 presentation slides. All right, so that is the first thing you will underline. 2 presentation slides together with accompanying notes for the CEO to present to the board, which discusses the benefits and cost to CC of investing in big data analytics, evaluate the possible opportunity to undertake long-term infrastructure management of roads in the 3 countries. So basically, opportunity to undertake long-term infrastructure management. Professional skills marks are available for demonstrating communication skills. So clear, concise, communication. Right. Prepare 2 presentation slides. You are not doing this examination on a CB platform. We are going to write the answer. So how do we do slides? Anyone? See presentation slides number 4. See, presentation slides are these, which even I used to explain to you the technical content. So normally a boss would tell the subordinates to prepare the slides. And if you see, the requirement also tells you to prepare accompanying notes. Anyone know what these notes are? What are accompanying notes to presentation slides? What does that mean? What are accompanying notes? All right, now see, the CEO wants you to prepare the slides. And he is the one who's going to present it to the board. So for example, in a slide, let's say, let me just type a point. Let's say risk management would increase shareholder confidence. So we just put a point on the slide that says risk management would increase shareholder confidence, and then you give this slide to your CEO. Now him reading this will not understand if he does not know much about what risk management is and shareholder confidence and all about. So in here at the bottom part you can see the moving cursor. This is where we explain what that point is all about. This is what explanatory notes are or accompanying notes are. You will explain here what is on this slide. I mean the points that is on these slides are all about. So that before he presents to the board, he will read these notes, and then this will help him to present properly to the board. So when answering, you must provide the slides, and below the slide, you must give accompanying notes. So for example, our requirement is that firstly, benefits and the cost to CC of investing in big data analytics. So 8 marks, meaning for each point, each slide, we can give 4 each, and below that we can give accompanying notes. Right, so your first slide, you can have a heading. Heading should be in line with the requirement. So discusses the benefits and cost to the CC of investing in big data analytics. So you can say investment in big data analytics. That can be your heading. So there you can say costs. That can be 1 point. Then you can say use for infrastructure management opportunity. You can say existing operational benefits and also benefits of data. So you can have 4 points there. And remember that don't go and write paragraphs inside a slide. So in the exam, make sure to put a box to show that what you are doing is a slide. That's how that's basically the format there. right? So how will we do it in a paper format? So put a box and show that it is a slide, and inside that box you write investment in big data analytics and you write 4 bullet points. So this is the only place where you can do bullet points. Don't write 3-4 lines for a single bullet point. Keep it short, and then you can explain this at the bottom, and that's your supporting or accompanying notes. I hope that clarifies your question. Most of you are worried about how you will show this in the paper format. So put a box and show. And how much to write about this, decide and do it sufficiently. Say about 2 to 3 lines about each of these points is sufficient. That again depends on the marks, because it's 8 here. Yeah, 2 to 3 line would do. Right, then the second slide needs about the infrastructure management opportunity. So that can be your heading: infrastructure management opportunity. So your key points could be it's another income source, right? You can say long-term income source. Right, also further development on services. Development on services. Right, you can also talk about reliability of the cost estimates. See, how much you would spend on maintenance, etc., will depend on different, types of roads, the size, the extent, how bad the damages are, and so on. So those you can, discuss in the accompanying notes. So, reliability of cost estimates. And one more point we can talk about whether they would put a toll, on the road users. See, if the government gives free access, then our income will, get affected. So how will that work? See, the problem is if they put a toll, then traffic, people might use alternative routes. Then the income will get affected. and you if you start charging, then people will still continue to use the existing roads rather than using the new roads. So basically you would explain about these 4 points below as accompanying notes, so that the CEO can explain it properly to the board. Right now, if you look at the requirements, see, the first requirement is more of a generic requirement, looking at financial and non-financial issues for 22 marks. And this is not a very difficult thing to do. This is not very technical, right? But only thing you need is a bit of understanding about the business. So then you can relate it clearly to the key financial and non-financial aspects. And the B part, see, that again, you don't need any technical knowledge to answer that. Meaning, there is no special learning for you to understand this. I hope you get my point. See, it says discuss the difficulties CC may face in fulfilling the criteria stated by DO. And by reading his statement, you can understand what the business will face in terms of challenges. Right? Looking at 2, so here we need to have an idea of PID, project initiation document. So that is technical. Plus, a bit of business knowledge as well. And then 3A is about ethics, technical knowledge plus a lot of practical examples. Then control weaknesses, risk committee, it's technical. And then big data analytics can be technical. So you would see a balance of technical plus more practical aspects that are being tested. Why I highlighted this is most of you are worried about learning theory. You don't have to by heart all the slides that we went through, no need. But you must have an understanding of the technical areas so that you can apply to a particular scenario. So application is the most important element when it comes to answering a case study examination. Let me quickly take you through the requirements of December 2018 paper. Right, the chief business analyst has asked you to prepare briefing notes for the finance director for consideration at the next board meeting, which discusses key factors which have enabled Highlight to be successful in its home country of New Zealand. Now look at this question, it's a very generic question. Factors that have enabled a business to be successful in its home country. So this is not a technical question. It's something like, what are the strengths of a business? And you get, good 19 marks there. And for a question like this, you will have facts in all the exhibits most of the time. And then the B part, using the fact sheet referred to above and any other relevant information, prepare a report for the finance director which evaluates the proposal to acquire another business. So we are doing an evaluation, the pros and cons. Again, not technical. C, prepare a draft press release. So make a note of this format. You can find out as to how to prepare a press release from that communication document. Responding to the criticism, assessing the social and environmental impact of Highlight's proposed investment in B. Right, so social and environmental impact. Impact on society and environment, that again is not that technical. And then briefing notes which she will use to assist her in discussion with Highlight's board members, roles and benefits of integrated reporting. Now this is technical now. Right, benefits of integrated reporting. So we should know what is integrated reporting, the 6 different types of capital, the underlying principles. And then 3A, write a report for next board meeting which discusses potential challenges to Highlight posed by development of disruptive technologies. Again, technical. Which are emerging in hotel industry, Airbnb. See here, if you have a knowledge of Airbnb, you can, nicely structure the answer. You don't have to read any books. I mean, what I meant is technical content. Disruptive technologies which are emerging in hotel industry. Moving on, finance asks you to prepare 3 presentation slides. So 3 slides, 1 for each risk identified. The company on the board meeting, potential outcomes of each of the information systems risks identified. So that is technical. And recommend actions for each risks. So if you notice, one thing is that there is 50-50, focus on technical plus generic elements. Another thing is that most of the papers would focus on high level matters. This I told you on the first day also, like stakeholders, reporting, technology, pestle factors, factors from project management, ethics, social responsibility. These are the key areas that is normally tested. Highly technical areas are already tested in your F level papers. So as a leader of an organization, you are more worried about high level factors, not minute factors that affects a business on a day-to-day basis. No. right? So be mindful of that factors affecting an organization at high level. Corporate governance, very important, and do readings on those lines with regards to real life companies. If you get on YouTube and Google, there's enough of information on ethics and corporate governance and risk management, of real life companies. Best thing to do is download couple of annual reports and have a read on those areas. Then it becomes more interesting as well to learn rather than just reading technical content. All right, so you have about 8 to 10 days for your exams. So what you must focus now is um, have a quick read on these revision notes that I have uploaded here, in case if you want to brush up any of the technical areas, and go through all the past papers. Don't look at the answers, try it out by yourself, and then get it corrected by a lecturer if you have access to. And once you write the answer, you can check it with the suggested answers if you don't have an access to a lecturer. And make sure that you time it and do it. That is very important, time management, because that's the only way you can tackle the time management part. Believe me, if you are not prepared, it will be very difficult for you to manage the time in the exam. There's a lot of content to read, and it's a bit of an experience. If you have the experience in reading and understanding at once, you can manage it. If not, it will be a real challenge. Right, we have another 10 minutes. Any specific questions that you want to ask me? With regards to the exam or any technical content? In the exam, make sure that you learn to relax. Don't take too much pressure. Then it will be very difficult for you to write an answer. Right? You have 4 hours, manage that time really well. At home or wherever you are comfortable, sit for 4 hours every day and try to handle a paper. Because that experience matters a lot. Up until F9, you haven't done an exam for 4 hours. And this is the first time you're going to sit for 4 hours in one place. I mean, for an exam. So it's very important that you have a bit of an experience on that. All that rush you should be able to handle. How many past papers do you think are enough? We don't have many anyway. Try to do all that is available. I have a problem to understand how to apply a specific model to a question. How can I manage? See, something like SWOT analysis. See, it's it's all about your experience. First, you need to identify what the question requires. Sometimes if it is very difficult for you, then you can avoid applying a model. But if you can figure out that a model is suitable, then you must not talk about the theoretical aspect of the model, but then you apply as to how to use it. For example, you know if your boss wants you to highlight the strength and weakness of the company, then okay, you can easily identify that needs the support of SWOT analysis. So here, don't go to talk about what a strength is, talk about what the company's strengths are. Similarly, not what a weakness is, but what are the weaknesses of the company. How do I know my answer is correctly applied? So you have to check with your tutor or a lecturer if available. If not, check it with the suggested answer. But mind you, suggested answer is not what you need to match with. If your argument is correct, then that is also equally accepted. Suggested answer is not the only answer. Which industry is more probably to come for September exam? No idea. Right now, always look at it from a generic business angle. Of course, industry specific knowledge is very good, but if you don't have work experience, then try to read about companies, and at least try to have generic knowledge idea about how companies handle matters, especially related to corporate governance, ethics, stakeholders, the high level matters that I mentioned. This is a good one. I get panicked because I can't write like the textbook, even though sometimes I know the answer. Now, that's a common problem with most of the students. We know it, but we don't know how to bring it to the paper. It's there in the head, but it's not coming out. So that is the problem with experience. You must write and see, check with a, tutor. It's all about putting that idea into the pen and then to the paper. Unless, of course, you do it, it will never, become a possibility. You must write out. If a question asks 2 presentation slides, it means 2 presentation slides with 2 accompanying notes. Yes. For the first presentation slide, you must have accompanying notes, then the second presentation slide, then accompanying notes separately. To pass this paper, do students need working experience? I am a full-time student. It's good if you have, but if you don't have, like I said, read about companies, read business magazines, download some annual reports, go through them, journals. There are enough of videos on YouTube about companies and how they operate and so on. So try to get some knowledge about what these companies do. Do markers demand good written English in this paper? Okay, they are not testing your knowledge on English per se. Decent English is sufficient. Of course, you can't put he for she, but then decent English without much spelling mistakes is all right. And when it comes to exam, it's all about confidence, lots of it, right? And you have already done examinations and you have passed, and this is just another exam. Don't be overconfident, be sufficiently geared. If you are not doing 2 papers, and if you are doing only SBL, then devote the entire time for this within the coming days. One important thing to do is practice past papers. Sit in one place for 4 hours, time it and do it, and get someone to have a look at your answer. I have given you an email. I have given you my email. If you want, you can send it to me, and I'll give my feedback, and I'll tell you how to structure it. And important thing, when you write answers, don't go and put all the points into one paragraph. Like I told you yesterday, learn to structure it. One point in one paragraph, another point in another paragraph, even if it is a development point. And have main headings, subheadings. Structure is very important. And number of marks will indicate how many points you write. If there is time, or manage your time well to give more points. So even if some points are not up to mark, you have sufficient points to support or to get more marks, right? So manage the time. That's very important when it comes to case study exams, because that because you might end up writing a lot or sometimes little, trying to think. So anyway, I hope I have given you sufficient ideas to tackle the paper, and wishing you all the very best for success in the upcoming exam. And I have given you my email, so if there is any concern, you can contact me. So thank you very much, and good night.